You'll notice that Flash has a frame timeline, and thanks to this it's well suited for traditional frame animation. This ability can certainly come in handy when it comes to creating UIs in UDK or nested mini 2D games. In terms of menus, you can use it to build pages. You would make these pages using labeled keyframes and then use ActionScript on your buttons to navigate between the frames. I'll be showing you that a little bit later. Our first menu is going to be a very simple one consisting of a single button that says play as well as a logo. Since I myself am working on a UDK project in the prototyping phase, I'll be using that as my example. Opening my image editing program, Photoshop, we can see that I have a file named Halcyon logo created already. But it's not yet to the dimensions that Unreal Ed would like. Unreal Ed likes all image dimensions to be in the power of 2. Here we can get away with that because the Scaleform Flash importer will automatically adjust that in Unreal Ed. But this can lead to problems when trying to update the file, so let's just fix it now. And we can do that by starting a new file in Photoshop and making it a power of 2, such as 1024 by 512. That's what Unreal Ed likes. If you're still confused, what happens when you import a Shockwave Flash file into Unreal is that it will extract any rasterized images that you have inside your Shockwave Flash file. It then adds it into the same package as the SWF object. So once again, this step, not 100% necessary, but we should still do it anyway because if you don't, Unreal will warp your image when it imports it and you won't easily be able to update it. And we'll just delete this background layer so that we have a nice transparent canvas. And then we'll go to place and place our logo image. And we want to resize it just a little bit so that it's even space on all sides. And then we'll click place. And we're done. We can save it out. Save it as a PNG. Resized. There we go. Okay, and we're done that step, and now we can go back into Flash, and we want to import it to our stage. Now we see that it's not centered, so we want to roughly eyeball it, about like so. But another thing that we can do, if we want more pixel perfect precision, is to go to the Window menu, find Align, and you can also find it here. And we want to tick the box named Align to Stage, and then Align Horizontal Center. And we could see that my estimation was pretty much perfect. The next thing that we can notice is that if you look in Photoshop, you can see that I have a black edge around the logo, but it's not showing up here, and that's because our canvas is the same color. So in order to differentiate that a little bit, we want to convert it into a graphic symbol. So we'll call it logo. And then we can apply a color effect like brightness. Now we have a little bit of differentiation going on there, so it's more visible. Now it's always a good practice to create different elements on different layers, so let's go and insert layer and lock the previous one so that we can't accidentally click on the logo. And before moving on, I'd like to say that the logo isn't even necessary at this point. You don't need to have one finished. One thing that you could do if you want a quick logo is to take some text in Flash and you can write your logo out like this. And you can just use it as a placeholder. Put it roughly where you want it, but since we have one, let's just go and move on to the creation of the button. Making a button is actually really simple. Now you can use any of these tools here in your tool palette. If we select square or rectangle, click the corner there and you can see that we can pull up all these different shapes like oval and polystar and all these different things. Or we could use the brush tool and we could increase the brush size if we wanted to down here. And then with a nice gray color selected, something neutral for now, we could go ahead and draw something, but you know, it's always better if you have a Wacom tablet or something so you can draw accurately. I'm just using a mouse here. We'll delete that for now, and we can just add a simple rectangle. And we don't want an edge to show up. We just want a regular shape, a fill. And so we'll draw that on our screen, like so. And another option would be to create your logo graphics in a program like Photoshop as raster images and import those. Or you can do them in vector in another program as well, import them, and then convert it into a button. But for now, we're just drawing a square, and let's just select it and modify convert to symbol. We want this to be a button, so make sure that is selected in button type, and we can call it button play. It's useful if you have many different buttons to use button as the prefix and then whatever you want the button to be at the end. So here we have our button. And honestly, we could already go ahead and attach an action to this button if we wanted to and export it to our game already. After a bit more Kismet setup, it would work, but first we want some text at least and a selected state visual change. So let's right-click our new button and edit in place. The timeline now changes, as you can see. You no longer have frame numbers, instead you have button states up, over, down, and hit. We can have as many layers as we want in our button, and we want to have at least one additional layer for the text. So let's add a new layer, and let's go to the text tool and select a font size, something like 46. Make sure it's a different color from your button so that you can read it. And then we'd write something like play. And you can see that it's hard to perfectly center, but again, we can use the same align trick. And we want to make sure that this time it's not aligned to stage, because we're going to align these text and the button to each other. So align horizontal center, and we can also align it vertically. And now it's perfectly aligned in the center of the button. Don't worry if the button itself isn't perfectly centered on your stage yet, we'll fix that after. And we want to wait until we're actually finished creating the content to the button to do that. So next we want to, as I've just done here, shift and left click and right click to convert these over and down states to keyframes. And now we can do something like change the color of the over state into a nice red. And there we are. If we test it quickly from the control menu, test movie, and test, we can see that we have a rollover on our button. And now one last important thing before we go adding ActionScript to our buttons and go back into Unreal Ed and add Kismet there to complete the functionality. We want to go back into the main timeline, so click Scene 1 to do that. To serve as our cursor, because without a cursor we won't be able to see where our mouse is. So once again, insert layer, lock the previous layer, and we're going to create a simple mouse cursor. We want it to be sort of triangular shaped, but I'm going to use a square to start with, and we can grab the bottom right hand corner and delete the bottom edge, and that'll create a nice triangle shape already, and then we can further manipulate it into the shape that we want. Something like that. And there. We already have a nice cursor. I mean, we can do lots of things to make it fancier. And we can, once again, use raster images, or we can use gradients. Now we want to modify that and convert to symbol. We'll call it cursor. And this one needs to be a movie clip. And we'll be adding some ActionScript as well to make this function in the next video. Would you look at that? After just 15 minutes, we're almost there already.